Hi everyone, it's Nikki here from Color Theory for Permanent Makeup. So today I want to chat a little bit about color corrections. Now I do get questions about this often, so I just want to give you some tips on how to correct and what to avoid. So behind me I've got two examples. The one is obviously a very faded orange brow, and the top one is quite a strong saturated, very dark charcoal, cool undertoned brow. Both of them are not placed in an ideal shape, and this is the question that most often pops up. How do you correct and do a new eyebrow? Now, the basics of correcting I do discuss in my online color theory course. You use the opposite on the color wheel. If you don't understand that, then you can take the color course, and that's discussed in a lecture there. So in the bottom eyebrow, you would take the opposite of orange, which is green. So I use ally pigments. It would be brow mod or olive mod. In her case, it would be brow mod because she's got a light skin and the color is very, very faded. So often clients don't want to do removal. If the shape is so not ideal, then you probably want to remove first. But let's face it, if you do get clients who often say, I don't want a removal, please just fix the undertone or do whatever you can. So then I would use brow mod. If the color is very saturated like that top one, you have to know that that color is always going to be dominant. That is not an easy color to correct. It will always push on through and be the color that ends up showing 1 or 2 or 3 years down the line. So even though you can help that client, it's not a permanent solution, and as long as the both of you know that, then you can help her. So let's start off with the bottom one. So brow mod is a very light olive color. So the question that I do get most often is, do you work with the modifier only on the problematic area? The answer is yes. You only work on the wrong color. If you want to add shape, then you have to use your target color around the areas where you want to improve and over the whole brow. So you have to think about two things at once, really, and predict your outcome. The second question I get asked a lot is, what do you do when you color correct? Do you use circular movements? Yes, you use circular movements, you use shading, because you cannot correct a whole solid area with just hair strokes or just blading. It's just not practical. It's never going to cover the whole area, even if you pack your strokes really on top of each other. I think it causes a lot of trauma on the skin too. So shading is, in my opinion, the best way to color correct. So if you want to change the shape of the eyebrow, you would first do with your opposite color, your color correction on the problematic area, your modifier, and work less there where you see it's not too saturated. Just 1 or 2 light passes, and work more with your olive modifier there where you see you need it the most. Now obviously you don't want to send your client away with a shape like that. If you want to do a new shape, I wouldn't add any target color to this problematic shape. Now if you want to give her a new eyebrow shape, it's not going to be on the same border. So what about that new virgin skin that you're going to work on? You would actually need to cover the whole eyebrow with your target color afterwards. In a case like this where you want to add shape, you cannot mix your modifier and your target color and just go everything at once, because you will end up having a two-tone eyebrow 2 years from now, because the virgin skin cannot get modifier on it, because then it will just turn out green or ashy in a year from now. So looking at the top one, I actually did use a very potent orange modifier on this customer. I used Ungray on her, and I did it in passes, circular movements, 2 or 3 passes of Ungray, and then a very light target color at the top, like a blonde or so, just so that it's not completely orange in that first week. But it actually did work quite nicely, and I changed the spots in between with a medium brown just to even it out. That client was never going for removal, so it wasn't an option. But in general, I wouldn't advise you to color correct something like this, because it very often doesn't work too well. And also microblading is quite deep. This was microblading. So when you shade, you have to make sure that you get as deep as where that person bladed. So this is just an example of a color correction that was healed. When it's that light, it's a slight gray, it's a bluey gray, you can actually color correct it and not add on the shape. I find that ideal. If a client's shape is not too horrible, and she can live with the shape and you can live with it putting your name on that shape, so then I only color correct. I don't add any color. On her, I used Grey Vanish from Ally Pigments, about 2 or 3 passes, and I let it heal, and this is her healed result after putting Grey Vanish on it. She's very light, she doesn't really want it darker, so you only put Grey Vanish on it. This is just another example of Grey Vanish. When you look at light skins and light colors, you can only, and if the shape is good enough, you can only use Grey Vanish on it. On her, the color was quite saturated, unfortunately, so I used about 3 or 4 passes. No added color. Her hair was so white that I actually didn't want the brows any darker. I only wanted that blue-gray undertone to be gone. So just modifier on the shape, nowhere else, nothing too tricky. So I do hope that it helps you a little bit. Please give me a shout out on Facebook on Color Theory for Permanent Makeup. If you have any questions about this and you're not sure, send me your photos, post me your photos on the page. I'd be happy to talk to you and answer all your questions. So I hope I see you in my Color Theory lecture. Go and like our page, Color Theory for Permanent Makeup, to see the links that we post there. Bye-bye.